Welcome back to another episode of The Loco Fit Show, where we redefine what healthy means to you. I'm your host, Lauren Conlon, and this week I'm joined by the bestie, Chanel. Are we trying to do...
I thought that was what we were supposed to do.
We were trying to time this cheers really cute because we made this drink like
30 minutes ago. But
it's still kind of cold.
I mean, of course it's cold. It's just sweating.
Well, like me.
Yeah.
Like us. You guys.
Okay. Yeah. So we made espresso martinis for this discussion because we think decaf, of course, because we think this is our ideal client avatar choice of drink. It's sophisticated. It's edgy. It's frothy. Yeah. And it kind of hypes you up, but we did decaf.
Wow. What a great pitch. Yes, that's our... If someone now asks me who is my client, my main client demographic, they're a little frothy. They hype me up. You know, they're sophisticated.
They're sophisticated.
We have the three beans.
So. And yeah, Lauren asked, she goes, how do you make it frothy without adding cream? And I was like, you just shake it vigorously. So... apparently you don't shake things vigorously enough.
Wow. The fucking shade. We haven't even had a drink yet.
All right, I'm going to take a sip, see if it's good. Ooh, that's very good.
Right?
Yep.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. It has plenty of vodka in it. If we had put more vodka. She was trying to talk me into the fact that her giant ass shot glass was not more than 1.5 ounces. And I was like, bro, this is a 3-ounce shot glass. It was the biggest shot glass. The travel or the like one shot hitter of vodka she had didn't even fill it to the top. I told you. It's vodka-y. It's very vodka-y.
No cream.
No cream.
So there's this coffee liqueur that me and Chris are obsessed with. It's called Mr. Black. So if you guys are if you're in the market for a coffee liqueur, Mr. Black is
actually very good.
Great. It's like cold brew liqueur. And it's not too sweet. And
it's really not.
Literally all you need is this, you know, whether it's, you know, decaf or regular coffee, espresso, whatever. And then vodka. Usually I'll do tequila.
I was about to say, most people are getting into the espresso martini with tequila, with reposado.
Yes.
I'm also hearing that it can be made with bourbon. So for my Kentucky people, I want to try the bourbon version, especially with like a smoky or like a mapley bourbon. I think that would be pretty good. So, but yeah, we can go ahead and get into it now.
Yeah, this is great.
Versus being about cocktails. Because I could also go on forever about that.
Honestly, this goes into our lifestyle consideration bucket pretty well. So this was a perfect segue. Yes. We had actually wanted to film this back in March for my birthday. But we didn't get a chance to because we were having so much fun. We didn't have
birthdays.
Time.
Birthdays are fun.
We spent 3 hours in Aritzia. But...
oh, that's right.
That's why. We're like, we're going to podcast after we go shopping.
Which was a bad idea.
Bad time.
So instead this morning, I actually said, what is the most important thing that you need to get done today? And she was like, actually, the podcast is the most. So we didn't dick around the rest of the day.
Yeah, sort of.
We did film. If you're watching this at a later day, which you are, then us posting the reel, it took us 30 minutes to try she wanted her hair done in a cute way for this podcast. And it's a viral updo trend thing. And we attempted it and it's an epic fail on both of we collaborated on the reel and it's, so yeah, we did dick around a little bit. I forgot, but now we're here.
Now we're here. And that's all that matters. And we wanted to talk about really like when we discuss our main client avatar, we have a lot of overlaps in terms of who our main client demographic is. Yeah. And we're typically working with female clients who are 30 and older. Yeah. Right. Like we really, I mean, I have some clients maybe now who are under 30, but typically like as I've gotten older, my clients have gotten older as well. And I love working with even like masters competitors. Like I love working with that demographic. And I think it's tough because there's a lot of people, whether it's coaches or influencers who are younger, right? And I think a lot of times it can seem like, okay, well, this person is like 21 and they're trying to say like everybody has to, you know, train like this, eat like this.
Have this morning routine.
Yeah, have this 3-hour morning routine. Listen, I love a good morning routine, right? Yeah. And I'm very aware that even though I am 32, like don't have any kids, so I can't have a more elaborate morning routine. Yeah. But my main client demographic typically is a mom.
Yeah.
Not always, but a lot of clients I work with are moms. They have very busy schedules.
Yeah. Or a working, like a professional mom even at that point.
Yeah. Most of my clients are professional moms with very intensive careers.
Same.
Who are between, 30 to 50 years old.
Yeah.
And some compete, but most are just like lifestyle. Either they're trying to find their way after competing, which is a big subset of people that I work with, or just people who are like, hey, like I want to balance all these things, and I need one thing off of my plate, and like this is what you can take off of my plate, right?
Well, and I will say the clients that I do get that are under the age of 30. I think that they are more of those future thinkers, those future planners, and they're like saying, okay, well, I'm, 25, 26, and I really want to be able to focus on getting that career that I want to have in my 30s. So it's like, I want this coach that can kind of help me refocus and take something off my plate so I can get to where I want to be, whether that be from a lifestyle point of view, whether it be from a physique point of view, or whether it be from a career point of view. And I need something, like you said, off my plate so I can make that happen. So we don't want to isolate our younger clients. We're not doing that.
No.
But I do think that those clients do still have this specific characteristic trait that is so important that you have to have mastered almost by your 30s, or you see in glaring red lights, like, this is what I need now because I didn't do this then. And so I do think, like I said, we just kind of looked at like where our base client is at. That's so common between the both of us. And I think, let's be honest, I would argue that most people who seek out coaching have so many common characteristics of themselves, and what they're looking to get out of coaching.
Yes. Yeah. Like the clients are going to, like the client avatar is going to be sort of similar.
So
to us,
similar.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we get it. Right.
Yeah.
And then that's where there is that disconnect sometimes when, again, there's nothing against them. Like we both started coaching when we were younger. So this is nothing against young coaches at all. But when I was younger, I was coaching younger clients, right? Not always, but I was. And what I see is more of an issue is a lot of times there's a lot of content, especially the more, viral or just like more circulated content that has those types of clients and individuals. And then the client who maybe has all these other responsibilities is like, is this what I need to do?
But can I do this?
Can I do this? Like, do I want to do this?
Is it really even feasible for me?
And I think there's a big difference of, can I do this versus like, sure, could you? Yeah. But do you actually want to? And I think that I feel like after 30, like you kind of just really start, like priorities start shifting in like a very different way. Yeah. At least that happened to me. And I know a lot of people, like when I turned 30, they're like, things are going to be different. And you're like, okay, sure. But it really, honestly, I feel like did happen in that way. Where now I'm just kind of like, could I? Yes. Do I want to?
Probably not.
Probably not. Right. So that's an important question to ask yourself. And that's really where the first piece of this in terms of being like a lifestyle consideration is absolutely important, like most important. And this goes, of course, into like the client goals, right? Like if we're working with a competitive athlete, that's going to be very different than just a lifestyle client, someone who's trying to repair their relationship with food, right? So lifestyle is going to look different, but just in general with our typical client, they're juggling a lot more on the lifestyle like
side of things
front.
Yeah. They're juggling 1 to 2, 3. I think the average household still has 2.5 kids. I don't know where we're arriving at this half child, but I think that's like the statistic here. And most households at this point are double income from a necessity standpoint. But I do think women are very, very passionate about their careers now, more so than ever, whether that be the need for the double income household or women in general have gotten more educated. So they're taking their careers into more higher value places. And so again, the factors that we have to consider is that as a coach, most of our clients are going to have pillars in their life that are actually far more important than coaching. They still want us to take that role in our hands, but they're not going to choose their kids over our programming. They're not going to choose they're not going to choose our programming. Did I say that backwards?
Yeah, I was like, well,
sorry, I said that backwards.
And I was like, no, you're going to follow the program.
Yeah, no, in fact, some people think I was that way. Like, I think I had a bad rap for a while there when I was competing, is that people thought that, like, I was that kind of coach of like, no questions asked. This is the program. You're going to get it done regardless. And in fact, it was never really like that with my lifestyle clients ever. But I think, again, the persona that I was putting out as a competitive athlete. But yes, no, I am well aware that my macro program and my training program does not take precedent over your kids. And if your kids are you're sick, or your kids are sick, or that my training program is going to supersede this big work project deadline that you have. Like if you check in with me and you tell me like, hey, like it just didn't happen this week. I have to either manage what that looks like and how, ask those questions about where are we going to fit things in, or where I'm like, okay, great. Like just let's pick up the training day with the day that you missed from last week. And that's where we're starting. That's always a common question. So do I just start back over at like day 1? And I'm like, no, you still have day 5. Like your body doesn't know. Yeah. Your body doesn't know that you're supposed to be on day 1 on Monday. Like just pick up where you left off. And like, again, managing their expectations of what we truly know our place is in their life. Like I think that they think that we might be higher placement, but we absolutely know that we're not. And that we're helping figure out how we fit in to that bigger picture for them.
One thing, and I know you work with a lot of new moms as well, and the coaches on the team too, just again with like the age that we're typically working with.
I have all new moms.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed is, a lot of people who are still adjusting, within that first like year, even 2 years, but really that first year, it's a huge adjustment, especially for the working professional mom. Yes. And now you're trying to juggle like, husband or partner and new kid, and then going back to work, and do we get childcare? Do I do less? Like it's a lot. And one thing that a lot of people struggle with is they're like having some kind of routine, right? And a lot of those clients, like they recognize, they're like, I know that I can't have this elaborate, like me, my one client, we spell it like, in like the upper and lower case, like upper, lower, upper morning routine. That's like routine. How we type it. We, she can't have that anymore, but it's about developing something, because she's like, I feel like I have nothing that I can like grasp onto. Yeah. So I was like, listen, I want you to just have a routine. It can be before she wakes up. It can be middle of the day. It can be nighttime, because every single day for you looks different. Yeah.
I don't know how she would have a routine before she actually physically wakes up.
No, sorry, before her daughter wakes up. Before you wake up.
I need you to be thinking this in your sleep.
The new biohack is actually doing something before you're even awake. And if you don't do that, you're a fucking loser.
And you can't get your shit together in life.
Yeah. You know what? You're a failure. Just call it. Just pack it up. Yeah. Just pack it
Pack up the day. We're done.
Honestly, I'm sure someone on TikTok said that. But, I was like, listen, like we just need to set aside like 10 minutes, like just in your mind, have your kind of bare minimum that you want to do, and then just commit to that. And she was like, this helped me so much to like not have a time, because again, her daughter wakes up at different times because she's still young. It's like, I really needed something for me, and just to say every day, like, I'm going to do this. Doesn't matter when it is, because a lot of times we want control over our schedule. Like there's nothing more than we love. And that's just completely out the window with kids, especially young kids. Obviously, as they get older, it's a little bit easier to do that. But, first few years is really tough. So have there been other things you guys have found outside of like creating different routines that have been really helpful with clients who are kind of struggling with that?
Yeah. So I feel like one of the biggest things is I try to find those like low hanging fruits within, their practices. So can we set a step goal over just actually having a specific cardio protocol or cardio routine? Or is the step goal null and void because of the type of job that they have, the type of commitment that they have to sitting in that desk chair? And that's when the step goal is irrelevant. And then we do need to have an established cardio protocol. A lot of my clients think that they need to have both. And I want to assess their lifestyle first. Like I have a client who literally will be in her desk from, 8 in the morning and never get up until maybe 6 or 7 at night. So if we're going to do cardio, we're going to do cardio around her training, and we're not going to set a step goal. It's not relevant to her life currently. Because she's not going to now, while we could set she could have a treadmill, potentially desk, there could be those things, but I'm not going to just come at her and be like, you got to get a treadmill desk. I might say, yes. If you're going to get up and go to the bathroom and you work from home or you work in an office, maybe do a little bit of a lap around the cubicles or a lap around your desk instead of sitting immediately in your desk. Sure, you can get a little bit more movement in there. There's places, there's times, but again, we're not going to set a goal because it's just not relevant to her life right now. and cardio is going to be around training. And then one of my other clients who actually is a fitness professional, she works in a gym. She does not know if her training is going to be training that she has to lead or training that somebody's going to lead her in because she's having to assess one of her coworkers or, employees at that point, or she's filling in because somebody couldn't come to work. So like we kind of don't know what her total expenditure is going to be on a week to week basis. So do I set her a training day and rest day intake goal? No, because we don't know if she's going to have training or if the training is going to be for her intentionally. So I have to look at what is her average expenditure typically look like. So when we go up or below that, then I have to kind of guess what's going on in that system at that point. So I would say that, like I said, it's just taking a step back, kind of getting the client to woo-saw, calm down, because they think that they're, somebody on this, TikTok said this or this podcast said this, but they don't understand the context of how that can be relevant to their life. And I think that that's where we come in, and we're trying to put those pieces of relevancy together for them. So yeah, I wish there was a typical template that I use, but it is typically prioritizing their career, family. And I think each client, has one of those that they prioritize over the other, or can physically prioritize over the other. Some people have more leniency in their job. Some people have more leniency in their family. They might have an older child who can take a little bit of the brunt of the younger children. They can babysit. They can do those things. They can go to the gym without having to bring the child. So you just have to kind of figure out where those pillars are in that particular client's life, and then kind of move from there and have that kind of, as a coach, you have to kind of have that decision tree moving through that particular client's life.
Well, one thing that you're talking about with the training, and this is just such a small aside, but this is also where, again, if you are, a busy parent, this is where you have to get creative, right? So for example, say you're I am stuck at my desk, but I feel way better when I move. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe getting a walking pad. Yep. So that on certain calls or certain tasks, you can walk.
Yes.
That isn't always, that's better than not doing it, right?
I never want my client to feel that things that weren't mandatory, that it's just, I don't know, people can still achieve these things without,
absolutely,
without, the bells and whistles of everything.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, definitely not. Yeah. I just know that it does help.
It does help.
A lot of people.
And we can discuss those tactics that help.
Yeah.
But I said, it's an open discussion at that point.
Yes.
And deciding which are lever to pull for that client at that point.
And even gyms, I know that there are some gyms that have phenomenal daycare.
Oh yeah. And then some have terrible. And they're I'm not going to put my child in that daycare system.
And I've talked to moms who found good ones, and they're honestly, they're the childcare is better or great.
It's affordable.
The gym is okay. But I would rather go there because then I have that time for me, right? So sometimes it's about making those adjustments, and that can be literally such a game changer for people. Something small like that, where they're now I have this hour and I don't have to necessarily worry about it. I know people sometimes literally go, they're I just want to shower and go to the sauna sometimes and just literally have a moment to myself.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that. I had a client who was I go to the gym 6 days a week, and I was oh, really? We might need to talk about this, because stress was something that she goes, I'll be honest, one day I don't do anything with weights. Yeah. She was I go sit in the sauna and I take a shower and I wash my hair.
Yeah.
And I was that's actually pretty genius.
So smart.
She was the childcare is great. My daughter loves the girl that works at this time of the day, and I can go. And so I use the sauna and I shower and wash my hair. And I was
that's phenomenal.
Phenomenal. I was that's a biohack.
Yes.
Can we talk about the biohacks? Maybe we could have a whole podcast on the biohacks I feel that moms actually do for themselves, and the little tiny little things that they kind of sneak in for themselves, because I feel I feel this should be a book. How can I biohack my way as a mom? I want to buy that book.
Yeah.
I'm ready to have that, because I learn something new from my clients almost every week of how they manage things. It's so impressive sometimes.
Yeah, because I don't know, it's not something that, like our mom, like they're so removed
from
that.
You know what I mean? My mom's like,
they're just removed. So they're not going to be like, oh yeah, remember what, like, it's just not on like the top of their mind.
They didn't have social media. They didn't have all these pressures of like
totally different, just life and expectations and availabilities for things and access, right? Like things are just so different now. And, you know, a lot of, you know, my friends are starting to have kids, but it's mostly like from clients, and I learned so many things, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I like literally I'm just like, how am I ever gonna have a kid? Like is there an actual book? Because like that would be amazing if someone could just put together like a mom biohacking book.
No,
because like truthfully, or we should just start writing it down from our clients and be like, okay, we're gonna credit everybody and then just like make this a free book for everyone.
Like I feel like the recent thing, I feel like that moms, I see them do like the peri-workout nutrition window. This one like blew my, like I was just like, wow, such a good idea. The fruit pouches.
Oh yeah.
I did not know that, like, I mean, obviously this is a very great food product that now is made for children, but the peri-workout window of utilizing fruit pouches, like I have a client who just will take a fruit pouch and a protein shake and go work out, and it's her kid's fruit pouch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's actually genius.
Super smart.
Super smart.
Getting nutrients. And it's easy.
It kind of reminds me of the applesauce technique.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what it is. But like she's got
There's
like
more options, right? There's
she's so many options. She's like got a mango. Like, I look through her like dietary recon. I'm like, ooh, this sounds delicious. Yeah. Like I can just see myself like buying these and bringing them home to my house. And Jared being like, what are these?
Why do you have these?
Like he already got mad at me for like that's it, like fruit wrap things to keep around, and he was like, are these like baby snacks? And I was like,
what's that's it?
It's like literally that's it. It's just fruit. It's like pressed fruit.
It's like dried fruit?
Yeah, sort of. And like it looks kind of like a fruit bar. Like they're okay. I will say that the hype of them is not as real as I thought.
Okay.
But you can get them from Costco. Giant thing. It's like 15 grams of carbs and one that's it, like fruit wrap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, don't really do them that much with my teeth now. They're pretty chewy.
Oh, okay.
They're pretty chewy. But again, like I feel like the moms like have these like again these little hacks that
are so great.
So great.
And just in general, like different, you know, with most common client demographic, right? There are going to be nutrition and training differences, especially again with considering all of the lifestyle factors into that consideration. It's not necessarily that they like their bodies are so like their bodies are different, right? Like, but it's really like we're looking at the whole picture of their training and nutrition with much more of the lifestyle like overlap
umbrella.
Yeah. But what are some, you know, nutrition or training differences that you really see that you're utilizing with clients in this demographic?
So most of the time the demographic is high stress. That's like a very leading topic of concern at that point. And most of the time they're reaching out to me kind of overdoing or overthinking the whole process. And so we have to kind of reduce training volume and or reduce the anxiety around not achieving a certain training volume that they may have been able to achieve prior to and thinking that that's the only way now. So kind of undoing this is what's worked for me in the past conversation. This is what's worked for me in the past, so this is what I feel like I have to do moving forward. Or putting themselves under extreme pressure to look or feel the same way that they felt prior to a high-powered career or prior to children being a part of their life and their high-powered career. So, you know, managing those expectations of things may just be different now. Your body, and I don't want to say that like in a condescending way of like your body just may be different, but there just might be a reason why you shouldn't put that particular physique that you were able to achieve then on this pedestal when where is the comforts of your life different now? Like now you have children and you're enjoying this chapter of your life. Now you have this high-powered career where you do want to go out and socialize, or you do want to travel because you have the financial means to do so because of this career that you have. So let's manage these really great things that are in your life now that may look different because you aren't going to the gym first thing in the morning and then walking after, like, you know, I remember what I could look like when I couldn't afford to go out all the time. Like, there's just this change. Like, when you have more financial freedom, there's no reason why you should put this pressure on yourself to not enjoy that either. And, I think a lot of women, don't, they think that they have to look and do and be in a certain way because of what they've looked like in the past. If you can enjoy dinner out with your significant other 3 times a week. I mean, I would say 3 is maybe a little excessive, but maybe not. I don't know. Jared and I do go out probably about 3 times a week. One time is typically with a group, and one time's with each other, and then one time's maybe like picking up to go food and like doing a semi date night in or something like that. But I don't want to give that up at this chapter of my life. So I can't assume that my body is going to look like a certain way if there's certain things I'm not willing to sacrifice right now.
The expectation, I would say, is the biggest part, right? Like that is so key, because we literally hold ourselves back so much simply by living in that old space of like, this is what I used to look like. This is what I used to feel like. And now I want to overlay that with this whole new life that does not in alignment. Like when we were both in undergrad and we literally, our lives were like, okay, we're going to like, work and school and train. And that's kind of it. And we're very structured and we don't really have a lot of options. And like, you just kind of did all that.
Yeah. And like, I would literally go out on penny drink night, like, because that's when I could afford it. And that we weren't going to fancy cocktail bars we weren't going to do those things. And there's nothing wrong with it. No.
And that's one of those things that, I mean, I've thought about competing again so many times, right?
Yeah.
And even this past weekend when we were in Australia and everybody, we're talking about bodybuilding, and I was on the physique panel, and I even did a talk on, physique competitors and all this stuff. I mean,
obviously both of us work with those too, still.
Yeah. Like, I get excited when my clients are prepping. Like there's all these.
That check-in always looks very different. Yes. Always. And always will. It always will. The goal is entirely different.
Very different. And that's one of those things where I have to say, okay, am I romanticizing the like end goal and like the end feeling and forgetting about what it's going to take the 6 months prior to getting there? And do I want to say no to those things right now? Because it's not about saying I can do all of the things. Like the yeses are there.
The yes.
It's the saying no to the certain things that I don't want to say no to.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to like realign that with clients, with their expectations. And we're in this place where we are the coaches and we're guiding them, right? Like I'm not here to tell someone to do something or not. Like this is your choice.
Yeah.
But I always like to lay it out to them that way. Like, okay, here are the 2 options. You're saying this. And so we have 2 courses of action pretty much. We can do this, and then these things might happen.
Yeah.
Or if you really want this to happen in a faster time, like we're going to have to do these things. Are you willing to do this? And if not, we're going to still follow plan A, because it's still going to get us there.
Yeah.
But it's going to be slower.
And
honestly, I find that a lot of moms that I work with too, they're like, I'm okay with that now. Like they don't even care. Like that pressure is less, and I find that too, especially with masters physique competitors, or really masters competitors in any field, but masters physique competitors, there's less of this pressure. Whereas like if you're, between, 18 to, 28, right? Like those earlier kind of years as a competitor, it's like, okay, I could turn pro really quick. And like, if I just do all the circuits and I do all these things, and again, you have less stuff in your life going on. So you can just kind of like shut it all out and compete. And like, that's what I did. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
But with the masters competitors, they're kind of like, yeah, I know it's going to take longer. And like, I'm just here to enjoy this. Like, this is just fun. And like, I have to prioritize all these other things in my life, and competing is like further down the line. I'm still going to do it great, but like, it's not the thing that's like driving this obsession for me. So it's a very different client.
Yeah, it's not the vehicle at that point. No. There was something you said, and I tell this to my clients, or I don't tell them, but we have this discussion. I kind of use it in the example of like going on vacation is the most common way I use this example. But I'm like, let's pick our battle here. You are up to battle on this vacation with the interference of your training, with the interference of your routine food and habits, with the interference of socializing, and, having that being a part of the equation. So which of these things, one, are accessible on the vacation? Like, is training accessible? Which of these things means the most to you about this vacation? I mean, if somebody tells me or if Jared and I decide we're going to New York, the most important thing about that trip to me is, okay, I want to go shopping. So like, if I have to eat in my hotel room so I can afford to go shopping, I am all for that. Like, again, pick your battle here.
I'm like, we say that. And then
we say that.
So much good food in New York.
We'll go. That could be a whole nother. You've gotten more experience with the New York, but like, there's just going to be things that are going to be like, if I go to Colorado, like, I know I'm going to be so much more physically active. Like, I'm going to be walking. I'm going to be maybe going on a hike. I'm going to be doing all of these things that I'm not going to maybe prioritize training as much. Yes. But I still want to enjoy dining out and stuff, because I love Denver's food scene. So again, I think everybody's different. So again, I always use that conversation of let's pick our battle here. Mm-hmm. Let's see what's on the table for this particular scenario, and let's see what is a negotiable and what's a non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. And those non-negotiables, that's my job to then help you work through the negotiable options at that point. Mm-hmm. That's where my knowledge is coming to the table to help you sort through these things. And that's typically where we come in as the coach. Mm-hmm. And if we're, unfortunately, I know people have different coaching styles, and it's almost like they coach every client on their roster as having the same goal, which is maybe contest prep, or every client, wants to be gnarly and shreddy, just like the contest prep person. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case with us. Most of our clients have very varying goals, very varied lifestyles, and completely varied ways in which they are okay with going about picking their battle.
Yeah. And I would say another common thread amongst our clients is they want a very full life. Mm-hmm. This is an addition to their life. Even our competitors.
Yeah. True. That's very true.
The people that we are coaching as competitors, again, whether they're physique, performance, athletes, they are doing this as a way that it adds to their life. Is it hard? Absolutely. But they're not doing it for these reasons that are, just kind of taking away all of that. And I would say that really is one of the distinguishing factors. Mm-hmm. And it's so important to consider that when you are making those changes. And that's why we're so big on flexibility and nuance and questions. And I feel like sometimes there's always more questions than there are even. I try to gather as much data as possible. If you're one of my clients, same with you guys, you ask so many questions. Yeah. Because it's we do that not because we just want you to, because we want to have the full picture. We want to have the full understanding, so that when we do give the response of hey, here's how we would approach this.
And it's in alignment with what you want, and as opposed to going to be out of alignment for what you really want. And then that force feeling that the client then has creates a discrepancy between the coach and the client at that point.
Yes. Because there is I always just want to get this point home to people. Almost everything works. Almost every single thing that we could do works.
Surprisingly. Wow.
Surprisingly.
Even though you're told that only this works and only this works, and this worked for me, so it should work for you.
You want to do low carb? Great. You want to do high carb? Great. You want to train like this? Great. Literally 90% of there are the basics, you know what I mean? That everybody, yes, we need to drink water and have protein and do all this. But most things work. The reason we're changing them is because it's what is based on the client, their adherence, their lifestyle, and what they enjoy.
Yeah, and what works for them.
Yeah. If somebody told me that I had to do a certain thing, if I had to train CrossFit for the rest of my life, I'd be pretty pissed. I don't like training like that.
No.
But there are some people who they're no, that's my jam. And I would rather have other things that are, not do those things because of that. Okay, great. I've had competitors who want to compete, who then are you know what? This is actually taking away from other things that I could be doing. I'm absolutely. If you want to compete, you need to be doing this. You need to be training this way. You need to be eating this way. Not really a lot of other room for error. We still have flexibility, but within the confines of physique sports. If you are competing in a bodybuilding show, I would not recommend also training for a triathlon. It's just not, it's going to be pretty
competing interests.
Yeah. So there are certain things you have to say no, no to. And some people don't want to do that. So that goes back to the expectation. Okay, what are the expectations here? And let's realign those. And one thing, in terms of obstacles that a lot of clients will face, especially, female clients as they are getting older. And this happens at a very different age for everybody, but perimenopause and menopause, and going through all of that, like with clients. And I'm going through that with certain clients right now. I have some clients who are post-menopause already who are working with me. And that's a very difficult time for a lot of women. And some people have a very smooth transition. They're really...
It's so wild, the difference.
Literally crazy.
The difference.
The differences. And that's one of those things where we really have to rely on, okay, like we are here to help support and be that person who is bouncing those ideas off of. But that is where, you know, other practitioners are definitely going to have to come into play.
Yeah.
Right.
I used to think that I shouldn't say used to think, but I used to believe that it was very genetic. Like however your mom handled perimenopause or menopause, or however that transition happened for your mom, while it's a little bit of an indicator, I think that's nature versus nurture. So I have this kind of assumption that it is a little bit more nature versus like the nurture. Well, maybe I said that backwards. But like, I think that certain...
You think it's less about how your mom responded, more about
your environment.
Nurture. More epigenetics.
More epigenetics. Like more of what took place for you and your lifestyle at very critical places in womanhood, and not necessarily how it was for your mom. Because I have had so many clients at this point who were like, you know, it was an easy transition for my mom and it's been awful for me, or it was awful for my mom, and I'm like, it's a walk in the park for me, and I'm like, that's great. That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that for you. So I like the epigenetic thing, I think is like playing a little bit more of a role. And I think the lifestyle for, you know, women that are our age and a little bit older is just kind of like, it's kind of starting to like have this like big kind of glaring, like, this is the big change.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot more environmental factors
at play.
Not just like literally the environment, but that is part of it. Like what we're exposed to on a daily basis in terms of...
But the work-life balance, stress, and all that.
The stress bucket and like the load of all of that is so different versus like, you know, our clients' mom's generation, right? So we cannot not take that into factor. And even if you do all of the right things, big air quotes around that, right? Huge air quotes. Even if you do all the right things beforehand, you could still go through menopause or perimenopause and really, really struggle. So there's really no defining it. And one thing I know that a lot of people do struggle with, and I've struggled with this with my own medical stuff, like there's this like feeling of guilt, even though there's literally not a lot that we can do, right? But there's like this guilt of like, oh, why is this happening? Like I should have done something different. Like what's, you know, what's wrong with me? We
can't go back in time.
You can't, all you can do is treat and say, okay, let's try this and move forward. And I have some clients who in this transition, they are using HRT. I have some clients who are not, right? And both can be successful. So I don't think that it's a necessary thing that every, you know, female client has to be put on. I do think that HRT is unnecessarily prescribed to a lot of people, maybe too early. One thing with HRT, and I think that it's not always that it's unnecessary, but it's the amounts and the lack of consistent follow-up and testing, right?
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, I feel like it can help for quite a few clients in an exceptional way.
Yes.
But when I see some of the numbers and some of the weekly doses and stuff, I'm like, this is just really high.
It's lazy.
Yeah. It's lazy.
It's purely lazy because a lot of especially the clinics, they are dealing with a lot of male clients who their HRT process is very straightforward. Like it's pretty fucking simple. And with women, it is not. It's just not. There's so much more variability and so many more hormones to balance. And things that can get skewed.
You're paying per hormone versus paying per dose. Yeah. So it's like, oh, you know, if I get this much of this, I'm still paying for the hormone. So it's still this price, even though I'm getting a third, that I only need a third of this.
And the thing is with HRT, at least in my experience with clients, is that the doses can be constantly changing, and that's normal. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But you have to be on top of it because sometimes you might need more of something or you might need less of something. And it's not just like, go on it.
So
and
true.
There's that.
The progesterone and estrogen swing.
And sometimes it takes a long time. This is even for thyroid. Like,
that's true.
There's so many people who are, you know, possibly need to go on thyroid meds. And it's like this very small tinkering process of like, okay, this is not enough. Oh, this is too much. Let's try this. And that's when people are going to start doing things like that, where it's like, listen, like this is out of my scope, I can say, hey, I think maybe some of these things are a little bit off. I can look at basic blood work and go, okay, I can point to these areas, but this is where you need a really skilled practitioner who you're going to be able to check in with and constantly adjust these things, because this is not as simple as just take this. And unfortunately, a lot of that I feel like still trickles down from the bodybuilding world, where like people are just like, oh yeah, you want to get lean? Take this. And then it's like, well, how much is it? I'll just take. And then you end up with these, and you know, that's a whole nother can of worms, right? Like say you took a lot of, you know, performance enhancers early on and then like and just stopped taking them.
Yeah. Now you're going through menopause.
Now you know, there's a lot of things that can happen, and these things are serious. So, you know, just one consideration there in terms of like, yes, that can be an obstacle, but it absolutely can be managed. It's just one thing where you need to find the right practitioners, and that might look like going to a few different places, which trust me,
I was going to say,
I'm not saying that's easy.
Yeah, no, it's not easy. In fact, that's where I say like coaches like you and I actually come into the equation, and we're more of like the triangle amongst this situation. It's like we're wanting to work in a cohesive way with...
Why'd I do the triangle? Like we don't know what a triangle is.
Yeah, well, it's 3 sides, 2 points. That all lead to an 100... What is that they lead to? Like isosceles triangles, that they all equal a certain degree?
Well, that's 4 sides, isn't it?
No, isosceles triangle means they're all the same length per side.
Oh, that's this one. Yeah. What's...
Now we're getting a geometry lesson.
What's this one?
That's a rhomboid.
Oh.
No, maybe that's a muscle.
Yeah, rhomboids.
A trapezoid? What's it?
Rapamycin.
Yeah, I don't know.
Rhabdo. That's a right
triangle.
That's a right triangle.
And then isosceles triangle is all equal sides. There's like 3 triangles or something. Anyways. Sidebar. Back to what we were saying is I want to work in conjunction with this practitioner who it is supposed to be their specialty, and obviously within their scope of practice. And so I'm, you know, as a coach acting as this kind of second eye of going, hey, like you might want to bring up these questions. Hey, you might want to bring up these topics. Hey, I think it's time to retest blood work and see where we're at on estrogen, progesterone, because we're seeing X, Y, and Z now. And again, we're seeing it on a day-to-day basis where the HRT practitioner is seeing it every 6 to 8 weeks. So we're seeing kind of these little minutia or micro things, and they're seeing the macro. And so again, my goal is to help the client become more of the advocate for themselves with this practitioner who can operate in this scope of practice. And so again, that's where I was saying, like, you and I really stand strong and like, okay, like we're not going to cross that boundary. Because again, outside our scope of practice, and I literally physically can't go do blood work for my client. Like I can't, I'm not going to show up at their house with a tourniquet and we're going to be like sending this off. And like, although I feel like that's happening in some cases now.
God.
I know.
What?
Anyways.
Oh, geez.
But yeah, so we're like really wanting to, like, my goal is to help my client become an advocate for themselves during perimenopause and menopause, because I feel like not many of our moms were able to have somebody who was an advocate for them. And I think this we're starting to see this trickle down effect of so much in women's health of, you know, the lack of advocacy. And so women aren't taught how to become advocates for themselves. And so my role as a coach, I really want to stand firmly in, like, I want to teach you how to become an advocate for yourself around, like, I want to be the third wheel or the third piece to this triangle. Like I'm fully okay with being the third wheel.
Yeah.
100%. Like my goal is to just help manage this with the other people when it comes to the HRT equation, or being the one to say, here is why you could consider HRT. Here are some things that I'm seeing, and here's how HRT could maybe make that a little bit better for you in the transition or in the post. Because yes, like you said, some people HRT works brilliantly for, and some it doesn't, and some may just need to fix a couple of other things and then not need to spend the money on it. Like HRT is not cheap, and it's most of the time not covered by health insurance. I don't know in many cases where it would be, in fact. So most of the clients are paying out of pocket.
Yeah. It's going to really, of course, depend on your insurance and all those things. And the same thing goes, like, I love the advocacy word that you're using, because yes, we're seeing them on a, you know, we're seeing day-to-day data. We're talking to them every week. And we're often picking up things that maybe they would forget because let's be honest, like we all have a limited memory because as we just talked about, we are taking things off of their plate. Yeah. They have a lot going on. We have a lot going on, right? Like if I don't write things down, I'm not remembering. Yeah. So for me, if I'm to like go back to someone 8 weeks later, like I'm going to like overlay my experience and be like, yeah, I think everything was fine. Like, oh, maybe this one bad thing happened or this one big thing happened. Yeah. Whereas if you're talking to a coach every week, they're like, hey, I'm seeing these signs, bring this up. The same thing goes, with therapy, like we can, keep that triangle, or maybe this is the unidentified shape.
Yeah. The unidentified flying object on the plate, on the table.
The alien vodka. So it's one of those things with therapy that we're not therapists, right? But even if a client, like this is where we can bring up to a client, hey, we're starting to see these trends. I think this might be useful possibly to bring up, with a therapist, right? A bird literally just flew into the...
I was like, what was that?
Holy tits. I don't know. Hopefully he's okay. So it's one of those things where we can bring up, right? Hey, I'm starting to see these trends, with you. This might be something that you would want to bring up with a therapist.
Yeah.
Or initially what I would do is if I'm starting to see trends, I'll ask clients to start reflecting, right? Hey, here are some questions and some prompts that I'd like you to work through this week. Yeah. And maybe we do that for a few weeks. And it's like, okay, based on the responses, it might be something that, sounded like it was maybe a big deal, but it was really just like a small low-hanging fruit habit type thing that we could change, behavioral type thing. But then other times it gets more unraveled to where you're like, okay, this is now out of my scope. But that's where we can still help people on a week-to-week basis because we can say to them, hey, here are some things I'm seeing. You could possibly bring this back up, or talk through this in therapy too. So there's a lot that coaches can do in terms of being able to help like with
that are
other
still
practitioners.
Within our scope. Yeah. And especially when we're made aware of those practitioners being in the mix.
Yes.
That's another thing. Like yes. As long as you're communicating with us that there is another practitioner in the mix, it's so helpful.
So helpful.
So helpful.
Or just being open, to that. And I think that there's a lot of coaches who either try to overstep their boundaries and do too much, or there's some clients or some coaches who totally shut it out to where they're like, I this is not my scope. I can't help. And it's like, okay, well, that's not helping the client either. Because now they feel like they're not getting any support.
No.
And clearly there is an issue that is identified, but maybe they don't know what to ask because, or what to say. And they're kind of in that space of not knowing.
Just blanketing, staying. That's outside my scope of practice and being like, and then that's it. And then the client's like, huh? Yeah.
Giving some resource. You don't have to have all the answers, but you can say, hey, here's what I would maybe suggest for the next things moving forward. And, I think that's a really important thing as well, when looking for coaches, especially if you are, going through a lot of life transitions, not even, perimenopause or menopause related, but just in general, looking, if you're trying to balance a lot in your life, you're going to need a coach who understands that. It is not just like, do this because I said so and hit these targets and figure it out. Like, some weeks it's like, hey, you have all the tools, like let's pull it together, like you can do this. But most weeks are not like that, most
I would
weeks
say,
that's like 2% of the weeks, but
and like in the case of coaching clients long term, which I would think that's also a common theme amongst if I get a client in their like late 20s, I typically will have them on my roster for a good bit of time. And or they depart for a period of time and then they come back. And because they know that they know what the value of having that second eye is. So now I'm getting them at a different point, and I can't expect as the coach to get them to maybe be what they were in their 20s either. And they think, so they come into the equation and they're like, oh, I used to be this way, so this is how she expects me. And I'm never once going to say, hey, you did this before. Why can't you do it now? Like, you're a totally different human now. And so, being able to assess what was maybe at one time appropriate for your client and what in another time is like maybe not applicable any longer. And so, like, for example, a contest prep client of mine who no longer preps and who no longer wants to and is retired, I'm not going to treat them or put them up on the same standard and be like, you did this once, you can do it again. Like, it's just, like you said, it's just a matter of like understanding and assessing when those like times have changed. But looking at it like you have some of these tools and maybe making it cognizant like to them. And I think also when a coach says that is like, you do have this, like it instills the confidence.
Oh, absolutely. It's huge to be like, hey, like you've developed these skills. Yeah. You can handle this. You've handled it before. And that's one of the things with like stress perception is thinking, okay, it's not just, can I do this? It's, do I have the resources to be able to do this versus, oh, I lack the resources here and I'm not going to be able to do this. So it is huge if someone is in your corner to say that. And you know, because you've worked with them through those skills to build them. Like, hey, we did this over the past however many months or, years ago, whatever it might be. So there's so many different ways to coach clients through those situations. But any closing thoughts here?
I mean, I would say that like from the standpoint of a postmenopause, I feel that the postmenopause window is one of the easier places to coach from a standpoint of, goals are being achievable then that maybe even weren't touchable in the peri window. And I think that women need to understand that it just will take time during that transition. And that's, I guess, the one big thing is that, I think women are given false promises in this perimenopause window, or they're told that I can still help you lose weight perimenopause. I can still do all these things for you. And they're given, this false sense of things being able to work in that window more easily because of one tool or because and so they think that there's like one magic way of making it feel better, look better, and be better. And in the grand scheme of things, that is a huge physiological time for a female body. And there just might not be all the pieces of the puzzle to connect all of the things that you might want to do during that time frame. And that's like, I guess, one of the biggest things I had to realize as a coach as well, is that I may not be able to, quote, fix or achieve everything for this client. But if I can give them the confidence that they will be out of this and be better for it and be better at the other side of the equation because of the things that we're doing and the variables that we're taking under control and that we're really, really focusing in on, like, again, the low-hanging fruits, like keeping your stress level as low as you possibly can, sleeping when and where you can, because again, those things are like, sleep is drastically affected during that window of time. And so again, it's like, we might not be able to achieve all these things in like the next 2 years when you kind of hit that peak of all of that. But my goal is to make your life so much more manageable and your health in a better place when you get to that other side of that coin, because that's where I do, so any female listening who is kind of through that, post, I would say any client I've had post 50, it's just been like very, like at that point, I feel like science-based strategies like work again. Like you can do the calories in versus calories out. Like it's just different.
There is this unique time where it's like there is
so I'd say like 20 to like 32. Like the science-based community and the evidence-based, strategies that research has always said like that they will work more easily, and then the results are far more like calculatable. But then there's this like kind of gray area of like 32 to like 50. Gray. Yeah, that is kind of odd. That is weird. But yeah, I started graying at 28, so I have no idea what it's like to not gray, like to not have gray that you're managing. But anyways, so yeah, there's like 30, I feel like this like 32, 33 area of like, things just not being as optimal as they once were. And then I'm not like trying to be the bearer of bad news here. Like that I'm not like doom and gloom. But like, and then until you get to the other side of that perimenopause, and I know people are like, shit, she's like talking about 20 years. I'm just saying like generalizing, there's this like time frame where I think the lifestyle factors come into equation, that epigenetics. So we're kind of going back to that of like what your life looks like stress wise, sleep wise,
possibly having kids in that
possibly
period.
Having kids or not having kids.
Yeah.
Like I told you, I said like some women, like after they have kids, it's like this reset button.
Yes. Yeah.
And then some women after kids, it's not that reset button. So in like, when I say reset, like I've had a client who like never once was able to like have abs, and then she had a baby, and then she was like, oh my God, I have like abs in 9 months postpartum. I've never had this before. And I'm like, I know it's kind of wild, right? And I don't know how to explain that. I don't know how to explain that, because it's like you breastfed, you did all these great things for yourself in this area of time. So like here we are reaping the benefits of that. And again, it's that long-term gratification of like, what are these things going to look like in the end? So like this gray area of time and place where like you have to mold evidence-based science into somebody's lifestyle, and it may not apply. It may not apply. And that's where I think that concept of like coaching the client versus coaching to the principal or coaching to the textbook, like you really have to be good at. So like our ideal client avatar is actually one of the probably most difficult avatars out there.
But like, we're willing to be coach-centered clients.
Client-centered coaches. So again, when you hear that, like, oh, we're evidence-based, we go by the textbook, like, oh, great, that's awesome. Yeah. You can read research and you can dish it back out.
Yep.
But, if you're not coaching to the client and taking those thoughts and principles into consideration and figuring out how to apply them in this gray area, then you will not be successful with this client avatar, or you'll only be successful if the client avatar checks these particular boxes. Like, they will, like, I have some clients going through menopause who, can't manage their cortisol. So I can drop that lever and manage the cortisol, and now we're fine. Yeah. But let me tell you, most of this gray area, there's multiple levers that you need to pull in a lot of cases. And there's multiple things that you have to address, and you just might not reach that place of like optimal output and optimal results until you get to the other side of that coin. And then it's like, oh, wow, this is different. And it may not be the client's fault, and it may not be the coach's fault. It is just the nature of coaching in this demographic at this particular client avatar in their life. And so if anybody's making you promises, that's like the biggest red flag, is that those promises during this time frame are extremely difficult to deliver on.
The oversimplification, like if it's this, it's that, or if you have this, do that. That is what is so frustrating.
The decision tree doesn't make sense in some cases.
It's just not that straightforward. Our bodies are not that straightforward. And it doesn't mean that we're overcomplicating things for the sake of overcomplicating it, right? Like that's also a thing, right? Not like, there's always two spectrums. And there is definitely a side of some of the coaching industry that does overcomplicate things, I think, to a degree.
To a degree. Like the nose lady.
Oh, geez.
She was like saying,
what you think it is.
Yeah, no, sorry. Not what you think it is. But so this lady on Instagram, I came across her. She's like saying if you like are breathing out of one nostril, that your parasympathetic dominant and your cortisol is elevated. I'm like, first off, sympathetic dominant. I'm like, you can't know where somebody's cortisol is based on the nostril that the air is coming out of. And that is just absolute, like, bullshit. I called bullshit right away. I was like, this is crazy. And some people just like don't breathe properly, and they've never been taught how to breathe properly. That doesn't mean that they're automatically constantly in sympathetic, overdrive. But anyways, so back to what you were saying.
So some people will oversimplify like that. This is the problem. Here's what your
solution.
Okay. There's other people who definitely overcomplicate it for the sake of overcomplicating it. So they seem like they have all the answers.
And then,
like,
and then you get this list of supplements that are like 10 pages deep of like, here is how I'm going to correct your night sweats and your, hot flashes. All this.
And your cortisol belly and your
vagina is going to be nice and moist, and just add all these things. Just add all these things.
And what's frustrating is neither of those are the answer. And often coaching, especially in this demographic, which is what we specialize in, is far more abstract. And it's much more satiating, like for the client to just either hear one thing or the other. Like everybody wants that. I have a problem. Here's the answer. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants the answer.
That. Yeah.
Same. But
love that.
But that is not reality for most people. And I think that, again, this goes back to that expectation thing. We have to start to alter our expectations and realize and rewire our brain to be like, hey, if it is too direct or it is too complicated, probably not the right answer, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of questions, trial and error, see what works. This was good. This didn't. Let's tinker here. Nothing direct. And people hate that. People hate that. I just want to know, can I do this faster? When am I going to lose this? If I have this much food, is this going to happen? I don't know. Why don't we just see? And the clients who actually get results are the ones who are accepting of that. They're like, okay, yeah, let's make some changes. Let's try this. I'm open. I'm ready. The clients who really, really struggle to see progress are the clients who are so rigid in their thinking that they're just like, well, if I do this, then that should happen. Why isn't it? You're really going to struggle to see progress if that is your mindset around it, because you're going to be really disappointed 9 out of 10 times. One out of 10 times it's going to work that week. Yeah. But a lot of times it's not. So yeah, there's a lot we can say about this. I love also, this is just LOL on our end. We were like, oh, this would be like 20 minutes. It's an hour and 2 minutes.
Is it really?
Yes.
Damn.
Because that's how we are.
Damn. You know? I was like, oh, we got this. We got this in 20, 30 minutes. Well, that makes me feel better that I finished and you didn't in an hour.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I got the bean stuck, and then I was like, all I need is that going up my nostril on the podcast. I'm already struggling, clearly, if you guys can't tell. I already struggle to breathe, probably because of my cortisol. But no,
it's because you went across the entire world and you came back
in a week. And then got a little head cold, but all good. So thank you for coming on again. If anybody wants to follow you, check out your amazing content, where can they do that?
They can check me out at Chanel Collette on Instagram and ChanelCollette.com. And my coaching team is AudaciousAthletes.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. As always, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you could leave us a review, that definitely helps us move up.
Give us a 5-star rating and review.
Yes, give us a 5-star rating, review, do all of the things. And to visit our website and our coaching services, you can visit redefinehealthybrands.com. And we'll talk to you guys next week.